Thank you for listening to The Lawyer's Daughter. This is Jen Carroll, and this podcast does not have any video. I know I'm on YouTube, but that doesn't matter. I really appreciate you listening to the podcast here. Let's go get started. Hello, my friends. It's September 6th, day 61. There's 60 days left to get Harris and Walz elected, and time is starting to close in on us, guys. It's your chance to make donations. It's a chance to check your voter registration, and it's a chance to dig into the issues and understand what you're voting for. So today we're going to talk about climate, energy, and the environment. But first, I'd like to thank you for yesterday's podcast, which was about the guns in Russia and the money that's being paid to these influencers to influence our politics. And I want to say that y'all read it, listened to it, whatever. And I thank you because it had, like, in my world, it had a mini viral day. So that's a big deal for me. It's not a viral day compared to like real people, but it's a Jen Carroll viral day. And that feels really good because people were responding really well. I had a few maggots, but really it was basically a lot of people asking questions and talking about it. And I really like that. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give you a chance to understand the issues and also then be able to go have good discussions with people based on what you hear here. It's funny, a few weeks back, I talked about my friends that bummed me out because they said they were going to be voting for Trump. And it's funny because the things I brought up that day to try to debate them on the issues, almost everything I said has proven to be not just partially true, but completely true and like to the nth degree. But I'm not the person that's going to sit there and text someone and say, I told you so, because it's just not going to work. That's just not going to be persuasive, right? Being an ass isn't persuasive. But I'm encouraged because I'm hoping that even the fact that I brought up these issues, and now they're coming out in the media as real news stories like the Russian involvement, I'm hoping that will make them perk up and listen and vote for our democracy. Really, it's what it is. You've got to vote for our democracy. That's it. It's what we got to do, guys. All right, so let's talk about climate, energy, and the environment. This is a big one for me. I am a Californian. These are our values always. We care about these things. It's drummed into us. It's drummed into us from the moment we wanted to take our first shower and we're told that there's not enough water and we have to take it faster. If it's yellow, let it mellow. You know what the rest of that little rhyme is. Out here in Cali, we have always been environmentally, especially in Northern California. As a person who grew up initially in Southern California, I felt like I was home when I finally got to Northern California. And NorCal is really probably anywhere from the Salinas Valley north. It's not the Central Valley. It's definitely from maybe Sacramento north is considered NorCal. The rest is kind of Central Valley. I get mad because they often lump Santa Cruz in with Central Valley because we're on the coast near Salinas, which is a huge agricultural land. But the fact is in Santa Cruz, a ton of us work over the hill, which is Silicon Valley. And to me, I really orient Bay Area. Always have lived there my whole adult life. So I absolutely, except for Sacramento, but I absolutely love the Bay Area, and those are my people, right? So, but we all up here in NorCal, we are always focused on climate and the environment and the things that are going to make a difference in our lives. So it's the joke is we have a 24-hour fitness in town, and I was a member because I love my water aerobics. And I'd ask, like, why is nobody here today? And the joke is in Santa Cruz, nobody is at 24-hour fitness if it's nice outdoors. And today we're supposed to have a humdinger. I think it's supposed to be 89 degrees, which is hot for us delicate flowers in Santa Cruz. But nobody's going to be at 24-hour today. Nobody. It's glorious out. So let's talk about our future. Some of the decisions we make today when we vote are about things that will happen in the future. We have a responsibility not to just act on what's happening today, but to think ahead about the things that will impact us in the future. And this often gets me very chapped because I think a lot of people vote very narrowly. They vote like on their immediate needs, like they're like a hungry person at McDonald's. Sure, pig out, go for it. You're starving? That's what McDonald's was made for. Eat your heart out. But if you really want nutrition, you don't go to McDonald's. You got to plan ahead. If you want nutritious meals, you have to plan ahead. And that's same with voting. You cannot just vote. I mean, you can. Let me be clear. It is ill-advised to vote on 5 issues that are bugging you today. That's just not voting in a wise way. A vote is a strategic decision. It's about the things that you value and the things that you care about. It's not who you like, and if they made you mad, and if they have a vagina or a penis. Those are not the reasons to vote for a president. Thank you. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. All right. So today we're talking about things that absolutely will affect our near future and our future generation survival. And we have to discuss this because it's really clear there's a huge difference here. If you haven't found differences that make a difference to you yet, this one might be one because it's very, very clear. Our choices are so clear. Project 2025, let me just start there because it actually goes kind of to the extreme, and then I'm going to bring you back a little bit. But it's important to know where the white Christian nationalists want us to end up. And they want us to end up in a deregulated and energy independent world. So no regulations, and we make all our own fuel. That's interesting to think about. Think about that. Project 2025 says environmental protections need to be pared back and federal agencies like the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, restructured to give more control to business and less to government. Why? Because Project 2025's primary concerns are economic growth and energy independence. Now, this is really important because it sounds really good. Their primary concerns are economic growth and energy independence. But as we go through this, you're going to find out that what they want to do doesn't necessarily result in those outcomes. And that's the important part of looking at policy. Just because they say it doesn't mean they can't do it. Based on the 2025 view based on the overlords, I had to put overlords in there because I'm an ass. The regulations are perceived as roadblocks. For them, increasing the production of oil and gas and coal isn't just a strategy, it's the backbone of their energy policy. The ultimate goal is to achieve energy independence, but at what cost? If Project 2025 goes into effect, the loosening of environmental protections would likely accelerate climate change with little consideration for long-term ecological sustainability. So for those of you that don't believe in climate change, come see me at camera number 3, as Jon Stewart used to say. Here's the deal. It is changing. Here's how you can know it's changing. Ice has melted in both of our polar ice caps. So both north and south, we have ice melting. Great, huge masses of ice. Whole glaciers have receded. That is not good. By the way, every time one of these big icebergs melts, do you know what comes out of those icebergs when it melts? All the viruses and all the germs and all the everything trapped in there for millions of years. Those rejoin as organisms on our planet. So this ice melting isn't just bad for heating up the planet because the changes in the heat patterns are changing the weather occurrences that we're seeing. For example, we have not had another hurricane in the Atlantic in a long time. It's because the winds and the dirt that cause those things to happen isn't moving the same across the equator and across Africa. Yeah, it's all connected. Because believe it or not, even though there's people that think that the United States sits as its own entity, it sits on a planet. And the planet is round. Any of you who don't believe the planet is round have a big problem because it's round, and our weather and our climate is affected by everybody else. So if China is dumping carbon into the environment, we get that. It affects our environment because we share a planet. And I know that's hard for some people to take in, but it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. We share a planet. And by the way, looking at where your latitudes are, it's not your longitudes, I'm sorry, your latitudes are, that how far you are north and how far you are south relative to the equator is almost a predictor of how crappy your life's going to be in the next 10 to 20 years. So there's work to be done here, folks. And the fact that the Republicans' whole approach to climate is to put their head in the ground and say, I want to make more money. I want to make more money on our own oil, and I want to make more money by deregulating everything because I don't care if our water is clean and if our air is clean and if our land can be used to grow food. That doesn't matter. I want business to run amok. All right. I'm good. Poor Brit Terhune, because I just keep wanting to say, I digest, meaning I digress. All right, so the two parties have two different views of the world. The Republicans like Project 2025. So that was Project 2025. I went dark on Project 2025. I'm going to try to ease up a little bit, but not much, because it's kind of the same thing. This is one area where the Republicans and Project 2025 are absolutely hand in glove fit each other. I think that Trump's just trying to pretend like he's going to go a little slower, but I don't think that's going to be the case, especially based on his past behavior. The whole focus is energy independence. The Republicans are advocating for continued reliance. Resilience is a cybersecurity word. It's not something we have to worry about here. Continued reliance on fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas. The Republicans argue transitioning too quickly to clean energy. Now, I want you to hear this. They argue that transitioning too quickly to clean energy would hurt the economy, causing job losses and higher energy costs. The Republicans are skeptical about the urgency of climate change. Holy crap, that's like an understatement. But that's really how they approach it, is with skepticism. And they refer to policies like the Paris Climate Agreement as economic threats, because the Paris Climate Agreement asked us to take responsibility for how we're polluting. It's absolutely that's what that agreement about. It was about limiting pollution. As Republican positions argue that moving too quickly towards renewable energy would result in job losses and harm the economy, particularly in regions that rely heavily on fossil fuel industries. This will not surprise you. These industries provide higher paying jobs with less formal education, and they're vital to local economies in states like, here you go, Texas, West Virginia, and Wyoming, where a significant percentage of the workforce depends on oil and gas. Natural gas, oil, and coal. Okay, so there you go. There you can see the states that are really wrapped around this and what that is about. And I do understand wages. Look, I don't want to take away jobs. I get it. But I would rather replace those jobs with more important jobs. And let's see what that means. The Democrats see climate change as one of our most pressing crises. They're pushing hard for action, advocating for policies to reduce carbon emissions, pollution, and invest in renewable energy. This includes large-scale projects like those in Biden's 2022 infrastructure bill, which devoted billions to clean energy efforts such as wind and solar power. There is a lot going on with solar power. There's someone Dustin Mulvaney, who is on Twitter. I was trying to remember his name. I'm pretty sure it's Dustin Mulvaney, who is a energy guy, keeping us up to speed on what's happening with solar. Very interesting. He happens to be a Santa Cruz, and so, of course, I follow him. But there's ways to go find out what's going on with this. There's a lot planned, especially around solar. I have to say, I think some of the solar stuff, like solar panels over the cars in a school parking lot, brilliant. The cars don't need to soak in all that heat. And that heat, those parking lots are hot. Those parking lots are always hot. You have to go sit in your car for a few minutes. Oh my God. So yeah, put the solar power panels up and let the cars park underneath. There's some brilliant stuff going on. None of them involve sharks or battery powered boats. Although I love a good R radio frequency boat like that. That's so fun. Okay, that's a battery powered boat, right? Many studies suggest that renewable energy jobs could offset or exceed the number of fossil jobs lost during the transition. Okay, so here you go. The fossil fuel jobs are out there. People know how to do them. There's hard workers out there. They need to get paid. The idea is to transition those jobs to the new green energy jobs, right? So there is some training that has to be done. But ideally, if we can just swap them out, then we don't take the hit to the economy, right? If anything, we actually build the economy because these jobs start to become more and more available as we continue to grow with alternative energy resources. So let me just give you an example from the Brookings research that showed that a quarter of U.S. counties with the highest potential for renewable energy generation are also where fossil fuel hubs are. So remember how I mentioned Texas, West Virginia, and Wyoming? That's where a lot of these green jobs can happen. And that's a study done. That's third-party research, guys. That's not the Dem saying it. That's Brookings. So it's good news. The overlap presents an opportunity to help communities transition smoothly by focusing on job training and renewable energy investments in these areas. The Dems' vision is clear: combat climate change, create jobs, and position the U.S. as a global leader in green technology. Okay, so when it comes to environmental protections, then who gets the final say? Environmental policy has been among the most evident dividing lines between Republicans and Democrats. Democrats advocate for strong federal regulations to protect public lands, waterways, natural resources. A prime example of this was President Biden's restoration of the Bears Ears National Monument in 2021. You will be surprised to find out that, well, you won't be surprised to find out. I know you won't be. Trump's administration reduced the size of this monument during his tenure because, drill, baby, drill. This moved, when Biden restored it, the move aligned with the Democrats' broader strategy of safeguarding critical landscapes and addressing climate change head on. In fact, preserving our land. We just saw a big thing. Oh my God, there's the coolest thing that just happened in preserving our land. And apparently our Native American populations are really responsible for this. But they just reopened a huge river up in the Klamath River. I'm pretty sure it's the Klamath. I've got it right. In Northern California, like way Northern California, where the salmon run. They had dammed up the river. They being us, white people. What do you want? The people, we had dammed the river in several places because, we wanted to help the economy in those places. But in the meantime, we destroyed the earth and we destroyed a lot of riparian corridors that needed the wildlife to stay healthy and not become fire zones and everything else. So that just happened. If you're interested, that's a really cool story. So that's the kind of thing going on where we safeguard landscapes and safeguard our land. In addition, the Inflation Reduction Act that Biden passed had allocated it passed, guys. It allocated billions of dollars to renewable energy projects, reflecting the Democrats' commitment to sustainable future through wind, solar, and clean energy. So the money's already there. The work is starting. It's probably one of the reasons you cannot drive across this country right now with running into some kind of road construction, which is fantastic, but also a pain in the butt. But it's every time I see it, I get mad in that really good way. I'm like, God damn it, more improvements happening. Here we go, investing in our future. That's the kind of stuff I try to say when I'm mad. Because, yep, that's what's happening, investing in our future. That's what a good leader does. In stark contrast, remember talking about the environmental protections, Republicans under Trump's leadership and under the framework outlined by 2025 promote the more pro-business approach to the environment. Their policies prioritize deregulation, which they argue is necessary for economic growth. And here's an example. Trump's administration rolled back more than 100 environmental regulations, including the Clean Water Rule, as necessary because they were overreaching and burdensome for industries like, okay, just wait for it. Here's who was taking care of these big regulation problems for: mining and oil extraction. Oh, mining being a really safe job. I prefer that why can't the robots do the mining? I'm sorry. I know that takes money out of people's pockets, but it also takes your life and your lungs and everything else. So yeah, that's a really burdensome industry. And then of course, oil extraction. And my big thing with oil, even though I do drive a car and I heat my house, so I am aware I benefit from oil very much, is that it's really messy and we're going to start to feel some of the effects of extracting all this oil out of our planet. But that's okay. Here we go. They want to protect. That's why they want to get rid of all the regulations, because it's hard for the mining industry and the oil industry. The Republicans support expanded fossil fuel production, arguing that transitioning too quickly to renewable energy would harm the economy and result in job losses. Well, babe, it's happening too quickly. Yeah, there's nothing like too quick bringing in so many jobs to replace bad jobs. Yeah, that'd be a real problem. I could see how that's a problem. This stark contrast is even evident in broader visions. The Democrats are focused on aggressive climate action, rejoining international agreements, and creating jobs through these initiatives. Republicans have prioritized fossil fuel extraction, and Project 2025 goes even further, seeking to dismantle key climate-related agencies and regulations, weakening protections in favor of economic development. I hate that it keeps being under economic development. It's so big business can get rich, more rich. That's it. That's all you're looking at here, people. This isn't about like doctors serving new patients. This is none of that stuff. This is economic development for the very, very wealthy. Just name a giant for Exxon. There you go. Just name something massive that doesn't give any what. Sure, it employs a lot of people. That's great. Employed a friend of mine. He made a lot of money on stock, worked there his whole life. But that doesn't mean Exxon's out to protect our United States. Not their goal. So you have a real clear choice. And this point, the choice is tied with the energy policy. So really what we're talking about here is it's climate. So is the climate changing, and are we prepared for the consequences of those climate changes? Increased flooding, waters rising, housing, getting resources to areas. Remember, we haven't fought fires before. We haven't had floods before. We haven't had mudslides before. All those things are associated with climate. Those are our food supply, a lot of things tied into climate. Then you have this whole idea of the environment. Do we want to be able to breathe clean air? So one's climate and the changing patterns and the implications. Environment is like, do you want clean air? Do you want clean dirt? Do you want the ground that our food is grown in to be uncontaminated? Do you want to preserve the things that are part of our environment that matters to us? And then the last thing here that's conflated with these two, climate and the environment, is energy. And the reason it's conflated is, of course, it uses natural resources. Energy is about using natural resources to create energy, unless, of course, well, that's still true. I was going to say, unless you're talking nuclear power, but it's the same thing. It's still a natural resource. It's just really powerful. So all of those things, clean energy, we don't call it dirty energy, but we should. We have dirty energy out there. Every time I get in my car, it's dirty energy. Luckily, I never go anywhere. But that's the point. We need to think about this. So now we're talking about energy policy, and energy is a big deal. So Republicans believe we need to be energy independent, but that's specifically focused on oil and gas, fossil fuels. Their projects support the Keystone Pipeline, which promised to boost oil imports from Canada and create thousands of jobs. First of all, they wasn't supposed to create thousands of jobs. That was part of the hype. There were going to be some job creation, but it wasn't thousands. It was like hundred, not a lot. But more importantly, every time we go for that Keystone Pipeline, the level of risk we have to environmental pollution and mistakes go high. Remember, we don't want to regulate. So even something like the Keystone Pipeline would not be regulated. That's the goal. Just stay the hell out of big fuels. What are they called? Big energy. There it is. Big energy's pocket. Stay the heck out of big energy's pocket. You don't need to regulate big energy. They know what they're doing. They've been doing this for hundreds of years. They've got this down. Not a problem. Bigly. It's a problem. And if we're going to rely on expanding fossil fuel production without regulation, it's game over, people. Game over. Their stance is clear. Climate policies are seen as threats to economic growth, not opportunities, threats to American jobs, not an opportunity, and threats to anyone who has to deal with the regulation. And we know Trump hates rules. He does not like to follow the rules. That is in his soul. And frankly, none of his Christian white national friends like to follow the rules. In fact, if you're J.D. Vance, you're going to just tell people that school shootings are just a fact of life. That was like the most precious thing yesterday. Like, oh yeah, just learn to live with it, man. Okay, so the Democrats, when it comes to energy, are focused on renewable energy, clean energy. They believe the climate is changing. They do believe that we need to regulate and reduce carbon emissions, and we need to invest in clean energy, and that regulations protect us from companies that don't put us first. So them's the stakes, folks, when it comes to energy, environment, and climate. We have two futures, one planet, and two very, very opposite points of view. So if you haven't gotten it yet, because this podcast more than any other is like just hammering home this point. The Republicans want immediate economic benefits and they don't care about the long-term consequences for the planet. If we roll back environmental protections and we continue to rely on fossil fuels, we are looking at a future of higher global temperatures, more extreme weather events, and costly environmental degradation. And I cannot get this point made enough. All this crap that goes in the air falls down and it lands on your house and your ground and your kids and your schools and everywhere. So when we want to make cleaner energy, it means all those pollutants aren't going into the dirt that grows your food. What, do we all have microplastics in our bodies already? Like that, it's terrible what we are putting in our bodies. But there's a chance to do better. There's a chance to provide regulations that will keep us safe. There's a chance to look out for those who can't look out for themselves and to do something with leadership that really takes our country to the next level. I believe that's the Democrats' approach, where climate change is taken seriously and clean energy drives the economy forward, both with jobs and with providing us with energy that is sustainable. And all of this will have a very positive economic impact, mostly because we're not relying once again for those in power to look down upon those of us who work and to be compassionate. Asking a corporation to be compassionate is the dumbest job, dumbest mission, dumbest request ever. There's no corporation that's ever going to be compassionate. But your government should be, because it's for the people, by the people. And the government's job is to look out for us, all of us, not just today, but 10 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now. That's a government's job. A government is not a business, and it shouldn't operate like a business. It has a very different charter. And that's what I'm saying here, is that this Project 2025, this Republican platform, is coming at you like a business that wants to mow you down on the way to it winning. And I'd much rather see our country win. I'd much rather see our citizens win. The stakes are high, folks. Climate change isn't far off. It's here, affecting us now. And if you don't believe it, look at the devastating wildfires we have out here, hurricanes in the Gulf, rising sea levels that threaten coastal cities. I don't even know what Key West is going to do. It's not desirable property. Just saying. Not anymore. The question for all of us is, do we choose a path that prioritizes short-term economic gains at the expense of long-term environmental stability? I don't even know that the short-term economic gains are there. I suspect it's more, when I've looked at the research done, and we're going to talk about it, but when I've looked at the research done on the economics of Trump's policies, they're all horrible. They end us up in tremendous deficits, and his plans don't sustain each other. What I'm really amazed by is how the Democrats have managed to, almost be able to run a thread through different aspects of their policies and figure out how to connect the dots. So if we do this over here, it'll affect that over there. And then both of them lift up. Both of them get better. That's like how you do it. That's how you do it even in business. If I make the customer service experience better as the buying experience, like those two things, if I improve both of those, my retention and customer value is going to go up. My NPS score, my net promoter score, which is that stupid thing when they ask on a scale of 1 to 10, would you recommend this company? That's a net promoter score. And companies are obsessed with them. I don't know why. I don't think they tell anybody anything, but they were looking for if you'll speak on behalf of something. If you're willing to promote their business, you're a valued customer. You are valued. That's how you have value. So here you go. I'm willing to promote the Democratic Party. My NPS for the Democratic Party is a 10 because I believe they're looking for us, not just today, not just tomorrow, but down the road for my children, and God forbid if I ever have a grandchild. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make sure we're going to be here for it. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. I'll be back tomorrow with more. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Make sure you subscribe and rate, and I'll be back with another episode really soon.